All right, let's jump right in. We're talking about AI security today, but probably not in the way you're thinking. We're not just focusing on hackers or external threats. Nope, we're going to look inward. We're going to break down a systematic way to understand the real human-centric AI risks that are already inside your organization, and more importantly, what you can actually do about them.
And hey, just so we're all on the same page, everything we're about to cover comes directly from Chapter 3 of the tutorial, AI Security Training Needs Assessment Framework.
So let me ask you something. You know your people are using AI, right? From simple tools like ChatGPT all the way to complex data models. But can you honestly pinpoint where the real security risks are hiding? It's a lot trickier than it sounds, because I'm willing to bet the biggest dangers aren't where you're currently looking.
And that's where this thing called Job Task Analysis, or JTA for short, comes into play. What's so critical to understand here is the focus on the human factor. This is not your old-school task analysis. The whole idea is that the biggest security holes aren't coming from broken AI systems, they're coming from your own employees, who mean well but are misusing perfectly good tools.
So first up, let's talk about why this is such a big deal now. The truth is, AI just completely changes the security game. It brings a whole new type of risk to the table that, frankly, our traditional security playbooks just weren't designed to handle.
I mean, think about it like this. We spend all this time and money building these digital fortresses to keep the bad guys out. But with AI, the risk is often an employee, someone who has the keys to the castle, who just innocently copies some confidential client info and pastes it into a public AI tool to help them draft an email. The tool does its job perfectly, but whoops, a massive data breach just happened. That's the new landscape.
And that's exactly why this analysis has to go so much deeper. It's not enough to just ask who's using ChatGPT. You have to ask who's making decisions based on the report that was generated by an AI. That's indirect use, and it carries its own risks. You've got to know if your people are just blindly trusting what the AI spits out. And to figure all that out, you have to get managers, employees, and IT security all in the same room actually talking to each other.
So how do you actually do this? How do you tackle this without it becoming a huge mess? Well, thankfully, there's a clear process we can follow, which brings us to the 5-step JTA framework.
The source material uses the word cornerstone to describe this process, and honestly, that's the perfect way to think about it. Everything else you do, your training programs, your new security policies, it all gets built on top of this foundation. If this part is shaky, the whole thing is going to be weak.
And here it is. This is the roadmap. It's a really logical flow, right? You start simple. What do people actually do all day? Then you figure out every single spot where they touch AI. From there, you dig into the risks, define the skills they need to stay safe, and finally, you see where they are now. And that gap between what they need and what they have, that is what your training needs to fix.
Okay, so that framework is our what. Now let's get into the how. How do you actually get the information you need for each of those steps? Well, you're going to need a solid data collection toolkit.
And listen, this part is super important. There's no single magic wand here. If you just send out a survey, I guarantee you're going to get an incomplete and probably wrong picture of what's happening. The real power, the real insight, comes when you combine different methods so they can cover for each other's weaknesses.
Let's break this down. Interviews are fantastic for getting the rich, detailed stories, especially for those really unique or complex jobs. But here's the thing. People don't always do what they say they do. That's why observation is gold. You actually watch how the work gets done, and you see all the little workarounds and shortcuts people take. And finally, surveys are how you take what you learned and scale it up across big teams. See how they all fit together?
All right, our fourth and final section. This is where the rubber meets the road, prioritizing for maximum impact. Because once you've gathered all this info, you're going to have a mountain of it. The trick is turning that mountain into a focused, actionable plan.
Before you can prioritize anything, you've got to create a task inventory. Think of this as your master blueprint. It's a detailed list of every task, which AI tools are being used, how sensitive the data is, and, this is the big one, what are the consequences if it all goes wrong? This isn't a one-and-done thing. It becomes a living document for your team.
Because let's be real, you don't have an unlimited budget, you don't have unlimited time, you definitely don't have your team's unlimited attention, you can't train for every single possible risk, so the million-dollar question is, where do you focus your fire to get the biggest defensive bang for your buck?
And this framework gives you a beautifully simple way to answer that question. You look at a task through these different lenses. Something that happens every single day, involves highly regulated data, and carries a huge risk? Yeah, that's a high priority, no-brainer. But a task that someone does once a year with public info? That's a low priority. This gives you a logical, totally defensible way to spend your training resources wisely. So, let's boil this all down. If you remember nothing else, remember these 4 things. 1. Your biggest AI security risk is probably your own team misusing the tools. 2. That 5-step JTA framework is your blueprint for fixing it. 3. You have to combine interviews, observations, and surveys to see the whole truth. And 4. Prioritize, 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 so your training has the maximum possible impact.
So there you have it. The blueprint is in your hands. You know how to start tackling the human side of AI security. The only question left is, where are you going to start? What's the very first job role in your organization that you're going to put under the microscope?